Okay, good evening, everyone. My name's Scott Davey. I'm acting mayor in for Mayor Vavanovich, who is actually joining us by Zoom. We'll begin today's meeting as we always do with our land acknowledgement. Today we gather in the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. I would now invite everyone to stand as they are able for the singing of the national anthem. Thank you. On motion by Councillor Singh, the minutes of the regular meeting held August 22nd, 2022, and special meeting held August 22nd, 2022, as mailed to the mayor and councillors were accepted. Those in favor?
Sorry, Councillor Davey, we had a statement at the beginning of the meeting.
Sorry. Oh, yes, the land acknowledgement was made. Oh, Mayor Vavanovich, you want to? Yes, now is your opportunity. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you very much, Acting Mayor Davey. Colleagues, Friday, as we know, is Orange Shirt Day and Canada's second National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Over the past year, there's been an important shift in understanding the enduring and terrible legacy of Canada's residential school system. To mark this second national commemoration, residents are being encouraged to dedicate part of their day to learning, reflection, and action. Understanding the impact of residential schools and colonialism in Canada is a necessary first step in acknowledging the cultural harm imposed on First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. On Orange Shirt Day, we all have an opportunity and a responsibility to learn more about this dark history and commit ourselves to meaningful action. A few ways that non-Indigenous folks can do this include learning about Indigenous people relationships with the land, reading Indigenous literature, supporting Indigenous artists, having meaningful conversations with family, friends, and colleagues, challenging people who act in racist or discriminatory ways, and committing to personal change and allyship. Perhaps plan on attending a powwow or other public event hosted by Indigenous Services at Conestoga College, St. Paul's University College at the University of Waterloo, or Wilfrid Laurier University. Or check out public activities hosted by local Indigenous organizations, such as the Remember Me, Remember Us Walk, hosted by the Healing of the Seven Generations this Friday at 10 a.m. In short, listen to the experiences of Indigenous people. The last residential school remained open until 1997, and this terrible legacy lives on in survivors, their children, and grandchildren. Kitchener Council and staff members are committed to continue deepening our understanding of the history and current reality of Indigenous peoples and to addressing long-standing systemic anti-Indigenous racism that exists in our organization. On September 16th, staff and council were honored to witness the unveiling of the Every Child Matters crosswalk in Victoria Park, a commemoration initiated and led by residents and supported by a Love My Hood grant. This crosswalk is the first of its kind in Canada and has been sanctioned by the Orange Shirt Society. This coming Friday, city staff and council members will take time to learn, reflect, and participate in Indigenous events as we all continue our journeys towards reconciliation. As the sun sets, City Hall and Carl's Air Square will be lit in orange. I encourage all Kitchener residents to take some time on Friday to honor our Indigenous neighbors and celebrate the important and ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples to Kitchener and Canada. And Council, I can now ask that we take a moment of silence, stand and take a moment of silence to reflect on all those who were victims of the residential schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll begin by asking if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, Mr. Acting Mayor, regarding the item in camera or a caucus meeting with the city's land disposition acquisition matters, declaring conflict of interest as my family owned real estate close to proximity of the staff preferred location.
Thank you very much. I will just note the flag request policy for the Association des Francophones de Kitchener-Waterloo. And now we will get into the presentations, and I will turn it back to Mayor Verbanovich to provide the opening.
Thanks very much, Acting Mayor Davey, and thank you to all of our amazing volunteers who are joining us today. I'm sorry I can't join you in person, but COVID protocols require that I join the meeting virtually this evening. On behalf of council and staff who work alongside our amazing volunteers, it's our collective pleasure to dedicate time tonight to celebrate the milestone anniversaries of some of our affiliated groups. After 2 years of having to acknowledge these milestone anniversaries virtually, we're all thrilled that most of us are able to gather in person to celebrate the integral role each of your organizations have played in building the strong and vibrant community we enjoy today. Without your volunteer-driven minor sports groups and neighborhood associations, many of the valued programs, events, and services Kitchener residents enjoy would not be possible. To say that your groups have faced challenges and uncertainty in the past 2 years is an understatement. Yet your dedication and commitment has been unwavering as you adapted and changed your plans time and time again to continue serving our community. Your groups have been a bright light during some dark times, which is why it's so important that we come together to honor all of you tonight. And on behalf of all of Council, I want to publicly thank and acknowledge all of you for all of the work that you have done for many years, but in particular over the last 2.5. To make up for the fact we were unable to welcome guests to Council chambers over the past 2 years, we're doing things a bit differently tonight. In addition to recognizing the groups who are celebrating milestone anniversaries this year, we have also invited the groups who celebrated milestones in 2020 and 2021 so we can honor them in person as well. Thank you to each and every one of you who is here tonight and those who aren't able to be here. It's absolutely wonderful, virtually in my case, to see so many of you in the Council chambers again. And now, Acting Mayor Davey, I turn it over to you and our Council colleagues for the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Verbanovich. We'll start with the presentations to minor sports groups. Healthy citizens make a healthy community. 40 minor sport organizations are affiliated with the City of Kitchener, operated by volunteers who serve as executive members, coaches, team managers, special event organizers, and fundraisers. From hockey to karate to gymnastics, there is an event for every sport enthusiast of all abilities. I'm just going to move over to the podium on the other side there, where I'll be calling down the groups one by one, in which time you will get your certificate and pause for a quick photo, okay? And counselors as well, when we get to the community groups, I will be calling some of you up to make the presentation of the certificate. Oh, it's on, perfect. Okay, the first group we celebrate tonight is the Ashashi Judo Club. Doug Sparks is here tonight to accept this certificate of appreciation in celebration of 55 years of service to the community. Next, we celebrate the Kitchener Soccer Club. Tim Hart is here to accept the certificate in appreciation in celebration of 55 years of service to the community. A sport I've never tried. Please welcome Scott Bueller of the KW Water Polo Club to accept the certificate of appreciation for the club's 45 years of community contribution. Next, we celebrate the Topspin Table Tennis Club of KW. I welcome Attila Mosanyi to accept the certificate of appreciation for 20 years of service to our community. Please welcome Errol Narn of the Soroka Karate Club to accept the certificate of appreciation for the club's 25 years of community contributions. In honor of KW Gymnastics Club's 55 years of service to our community, please welcome Penny Richard, who will be accepting this certificate of appreciation. Please welcome Randy McCartan, who will be accepting the certificate of appreciation for Kitchener Minor Hockey's 90 years of community contributions and KW Sidewinder Sledge Hockey Club 40 years of service. Our final presentation to a minor sports group tonight is to Southwest Optimist T-Ball, which is celebrating 40 years of continued programming and community building in Kitchener. Gordon Caswell is here to accept the certificate of appreciation. Finally, we celebrate our neighborhood associations. Kitchener residents enjoy a wealth of programs and resources close to home thanks to working partnership we have with volunteers from the many neighborhood associations that operate across our community. I would like to invite Councillor Schneider to the podium. Councillor Schneider and I actually share this particular community center. It's technically in Councillor Schneider's ward across the street from me, which has been the subject of much bragging rights. But first we celebrate the Stanley Park Community Association. Thank you to Chris Latisi for being here tonight to accept our appreciation for the association's 45 years of service to their neighborhood. Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Chapman, could you join me up at the podium? Next, we celebrate the Highland Sterling Community Group. Thank you to Julie Allen Gilbert for being here tonight to accept our appreciation for the association's 45 years of service to their neighborhood. Please welcome Ron Williams of Mill Cortland Neighborhood Association, who will be accepting the Certificate of Appreciation for the association's 35 years of neighborhood contributions. Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Ioannidis, could you join me at the podium, please? Our final neighborhood association here tonight is the Forest Heights Community Association, celebrating 45 years of continued programming and community building in Kitchener. Ray McCormick is here to accept the Certificate of Appreciation. Over the past 2 years, 21 minor sports groups and 14 neighborhood associations have celebrated a milestone anniversary. Although not every group was able to join us tonight, on behalf of council, staff, and the citizens of Kitchener, I want to congratulate all our outstanding long service recipients and send a heartfelt thank you to each of you and every one of your individuals who volunteer their time and energy to create a positive experience for our residents. Together, you and the organizations you volunteer with have contributed to 1,255 years of service to Kitchener, and we are all so grateful. One more round of applause, please. So thank you all so much. Now I've been told that the rest of the evening becomes far less interesting. So if you don't want to hang around for that, now would be your opportunity to exit the building. And again, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Okay, we will now continue with the agenda. Up next, we have a presentation from Tova Davidson, who's joining us on Zoom here from Sustainable Waterloo Region. Tova, when you're ready, welcome.
Thank you so much, Acting Mayor Davey. Can you see and hear me?
Oh, you're a little quiet.
Oh, okay. Is that better? Is that any better?
That's a little better. I'm not sure we get any closer without putting your head through the screen there, but
Nobody ever said I was quiet, so I'll project a little. How's that?
that's better. And just everyone, shh. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. And I'm really happy to be bringing our annual update to our community partners and to Kitchener City Council. Next slide, please. In 2021, we saw that climate change gained an awful lot of attention, and the seriousness of this issue has really been striking home for a lot of organizations. And we also know that it's been a year of innovation, growth, and evolution. And today I want to tell you a bit about what's been happening with SWR, as well as some of the other pieces of work that we've been seeing happen around the community. Next slide, please. One of the big things is you'll see we've got a new logo, Sustainable Waterloo Region. It was time for a bit of an update and a refresh, and so we're really happy to see that, and we ask you to watch for that around the community and to know that all that represents some of the work that we do. And part of it is that we're bringing all of our programs under that brand. Everybody that we work with is part of the SWR network, and we're so proud to work with them all. So we want to have everybody working together as one big team towards a sustainable and prosperous future. Next slide, please. We saw in our membership that we actually had an incredible amount of growth in 2021. Not as many people would think during a global pandemic that things slowed down. In fact, many organizations accelerated, and I think part of it is that the pandemic highlighted the possibility of making change. For example, we had a commitment of 77,000 tons of CO2 to be reduced in 2021, which is the equivalent of more than 20,000 cars off the road. We also had almost 9,000 cubic meters of water being reduced, and 70% of members actually implemented projects over the past year. This shows that sustainability, even during a global pandemic, is seen as a critical part of our future and our movement forward. Next slide, please. Lots and lots of new members in 2021. You can see we had a couple in the TravelWise program and many more in the Impact Network, formerly known as the Regional Sustainability Initiative. We're seeing that this is not just in big business, it's in agriculture, it's with the development industry, it's with educational institutions. There's a lot of movement towards a sustainable future among all members of the business community. Next slide, please. We also expanded our borders. The organizations, the communities, on our shoulder areas, Wellington County, Perth, and Oxford, don't have a program like ours to help their business community. And after many, many requests from organizations outside our Waterloo region, we've agreed that we will be helping those organizations to also measure and reduce their impact. In fact, there are many organizations we work with now located in the region that have other locations outside the region. And so this allows us to help them in a more fulsome way and to serve a need that wasn't being served by any other organization in our neighbors' communities. Next slide, please. We also were one of the partners that created a clean economy ecosystem map for Waterloo EDC. We knew already that Waterloo region is the leader in sustainability innovation in Canada, and that this sector of our economy is one of the stronger sectors driving us forward as an innovation leader in Canada. In fact, we did this work with the region of Waterloo, Waterloo Region Community Energy, and of course Waterloo EDC. And we were told by the Economic Development Organization that if we had 100 applicants, it was a successful map. And we had over 130 applicants for this map. So it shows the real strength we have across the Waterloo region towards building a clean economy innovation ecosystem here, as well as tech innovation. Next slide, please. We actually launched a pilot project last year where we planted microforests. Think of this as a way to use undevelopable land, about the size of a residential building lot, to return it to its naturalized state. The first 2 microforests were planted in less privileged neighborhoods in Cambridge, as directed by by the Greenway Chaplain Community Group in Cambridge. And what we did was we planted in these two locations, these two schools, about 170 trees. What this allows us to do is to start to draw carbon out of the air, reduce heat island effect, slow down wind, slow down water in major climatic events, and to allow us to return renaturalization. These forests are now about a year old, coming up on a year old, and we're so excited to share that we've had many private donors and organizations come beside us in this project and allow us to plant more. Next slide, please. In 2022, over the next few weeks actually, we'll be planting 6 microforests across Waterloo Region, including in Kitchener, some in schools and some on private lands, business lands. And we know that we've got commitments to do more and more of these microforests, increasing our tree canopy and building a more sustainable, more just and equitable community through this renaturalization effort. And it's really cool because the renaturalization is done through employee engagement and volunteerism. So the business community is helping to grow, literally, a greener future for us. Next slide, please. As you are well aware, Transform WR was completed in partnership with Reef Green Solutions and all 8 area municipalities. This strategic plan towards our low carbon, prosperous future was completed and brought to all councils. And the graph you see here on the right shows our projected greenhouse gas emissions. And what we're aiming for is that beautiful green bottom line, that 80 by 50 pathway to take us to a sustained, equitable, prosperous, resilient, low carbon future. Next slide, please. You know that there are 4 primary pillars of this Transform WR strategy. And this strategy, which is executed by this partnership, means that we need to transform the ways we move, the ways we build and operate our spaces, the ways we produce, consume, and waste things, including food, and the ways we relate with each other. And we're really proud of all 4 of these transformations and want to make sure we highlight, especially this week, that the transform the ways we relate is the way that this plan integrates and braids together the idea of equitable and prosperous and resilient to everybody in the community. That this is one of our avenues to build a more just future through sustainability activities. Next slide, please. Some things we're working on, just to give you a taste of what's coming for this year. Next slide. We've had a whole bunch of new members in 2022, again highlighting how important this has become to the community, to the business community, both in the TravelWise program and in the Impact Network program. Next slide, please. We're also working on 3 new programs, a Green Building Network program, which is to help the development and building industry be ready for what we need to do, as outlined in the Transform WR strategy, to build new, low carbon, and retrofit all existing buildings. We want to build an ambassador program network, which allows us to help individuals move their own employer towards sustainability when that employer isn't ready to do that, and to empower those people to do that. And finally, to work with the partners in the Evolve Green, which is the Accelerator Center, Wilfrid Laurier University and University of Waterloo, to have a community sustainability lab where we can do some ideation and find Waterloo region-based solutions to the systemic issues that are holding us back towards that sustainable future that we all know we need. Next slide, please. These are our award recipients, and want to give a big shout out to all of them for all of the help that they brought to us, the amazing partnerships. And the City of Kitchener, of course, was one of our award recipients for the amazing Sustainable Commuting Award with the Downtown Cycling Grid. That work has been transformative for downtown Kitchener, and it's been an example that we've used many times locally and beyond our borders to share some of the great things that can be done when you have that future focus and that vision for a truly sustainable future. Next slide. So I invite you to join us if you are not currently working with us. We always are happy to talk to everyone, to meet people where they are, and to move us toward a better future. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Ms. Davidson. Is there any questions? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Tova, for coming in and for this report. I was just wondering how one would apply to be part of the Microforest program.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Councillor Chapman. The best way to do that is just to reach out to us through our website. Let us know that there's a piece of land that you think should be used or considered for this. Luckily, we have some funding, but that support can be employees to do the planting, donations to the program, or hosting it on land that you own. So just go to our website and reach out to us in the Microforest section under our program.
Great, thank you. I had one other question. You mentioned in one of your diagrams to transform the ways we build and operate spaces. So what suggestions would you have for the City of Kitchener to do that?
Oh, that's a big question, Councillor Chapman. It's going to depend on some of the greenhouse gas numbers that you've got and the sources. Primarily in business spaces, we know that the most important thing you can do is electrification and fuel switching after you've done as much efficiency work as you possibly can. So insulation and windows, as unsexy as it is some of the most important things you can do. And then looking at your HVAC systems, your lighting systems, etc. But all of it should be driven by the data, which we're very happy that the City of Kitchener is a member of the Impact Network and gets that data through our partnership with you and our support. So to look at that data first and to work with the incredible team you have there with Anna Marie Cipriani and her team to see what are the opportunities for you.
Thank you. Question, Mayor Rabinovich?
Thanks very much, Acting Mayor Davey, and Tova. Great to see you virtually, and thank you for coming in tonight and sharing with us the update. I really just wanted to make a comment and take this opportunity to thank Sustainable Waterloo Region for the ongoing leadership that you're providing, not just to our community in particular, in terms of the Transform Waterloo Region initiative and the work that we're all doing to meet the agreements that Canada signed and that we've all committed to with respect to the Paris Agreement from COP21. But it was great because I didn't realize that you guys have sort of expanded your borders to start helping some neighbors, and no greater way to help a neighbor than when it comes to sustainability. So great to hear that, and it'd be interesting to explore how perhaps, even outside of this region, from a municipal perspective, we might be able to start collaborating with some of those colleagues, whether in Woodstock, Stratford, and other communities, and seeing where there might be some synergies in that. So kudos to you and your small team, but mighty team, and appreciate all the work that you're doing on behalf of our communities.
Thank you. Just one question myself, Ms. Davidson, if I could. I thought I heard you say there was 6 planned microforests. Did you say 6?
Planned for 2021 or 2022, happening this year, and even more in the years to come.
Oh, great. Do you know offhand, not that I really care because a tree anywhere is a tree that we need, but do you know if any of those were in the City of Kitchener?
There are some in Kitchener. I know one of them's in a school, but I can't remember off the top of my head what school it is. I can tell you, though, that the schools that are being planted in are recommended in partnership between the Conservation Authority and the school board. So it's chosen for those schools that have low tree canopy already and don't have the resources to be able to do a greening project like this.
Oh, that's great to hear. We have some pretty ambitious tree canopy targets, so and we'll take all the help that we can get. Anyway, there are no further questions. Thank you so much for the presentation. Okay.
Thank you for the time. Have a beautiful evening.
Okay, thank you. We'll now get into the formal delegations. I would like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting: interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, turning your camera on at inappropriate times, and hate speech or any defamatory comments. For those delegations participating electronically, you'll be made a panelist prior to your name being called. Once you have joined the meeting as a panelist, you'll have access to your microphone camera. One last reminder for delegates, please do not take any offense. If your presentation, afterwards there are no questions from council, this is really council's time to listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. So our first delegate is Grant Vickers, who I understand will be attending virtually.
Hello?
Good evening.
Well, technology kind of stinks. Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I'm delegating in regards to the homeless epidemic that's been going on. It seems like you get a lot of these developers coming to you, developing high-rise apartments, this and that. In my opinion, you haven't done much for the homeless. It's gotten worse. I don't know who I'm speaking to now, but I've helped out at the St. John's Kitchen. I've been on the board for the Homeless Advisory Group, and like I said, in my opinion, you're not doing enough of building affordable housing for these individuals. And I can almost guarantee you, if there was any family members of yours that was homeless, I can almost guarantee you that everything would have been cleaned up. These people would have housing. I've discussed with, Dave Schneider, I think last year. It seems like if you talk about it, we're dealing with it. Like, I don't know why you're not building more affordable housing. And this building that's being built on Belmont and Glasgow, you would let him build because he was going to build affordable housing. But my concern with that is you build affordable housing first, and then you build your housing. Because this individual could easily say, oh, you know what, I've been granted to build this. I'm going to build it, and la-dee-doo, la-dee-da, not worry about the homelessness. Why can't you have a program? You have a developer comes to you, Mr. Billy Joe, I'd like to build here. No, we can't, because we've already had this developer do it. But if you want to build, you have to build affordable housing. I don't know why you can't have maybe every other developer build affordable housing. Like, there's got to be some leeway there. There has to be something to change there, and it's exhausting talking about this year after year, and this is the worst that it's ever been. That's all I have to say. I thank you. Hello?
Yeah, oh, sorry, you finished, Mr. Vicker?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. I just would like to yeah, I would like to with respect, Mr. Vicker, this item, like we're certainly happy to hear any delegate that wants to address us, but the issue of homelessness isn't specifically on our agenda for this evening's meeting.
Well, then forget about it then. Then forget about the homeless people. Forget them altogether.
Sorry, could you?
We might as well not have city council meetings at all.
Yeah, Mr. Vicker, your presentation has been heard, and I assure you that City Council and staff are grappling with this. But I would also encourage you to make presentation to the Region of Waterloo's Council as well, because homelessness is squarely in their authority. We do have some ability to affect affordable housing, but the primary purview is with them, so it would be beneficial to make presentation to them as well. Okay?
No, I'm not. No. I like Amy.
Oh, sorry, we do have a question, Mr. Vicker. Councillor Marsh?
Great, thank you much.
Hi, can you hear me, Mr. Vickers?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you for bringing your heartfelt concerns to our attention. I think that I can speak on behalf of all of our council that we are well aware that this is an incredibly important issue that the whole community needs to find a solution for. You're right, and it's very frustrating, and it's frustrating for us as well. And a longer conversation would be needed in order for us to be able to share with you a little bit more detail. You're right, it sounds like a lot of talk and not a lot of action, but the City of Kitchener is committed to doing within the scope of what we have control over to working on this issue. It's one of our absolute top priorities. It is the absolute top priority, 100%. So I appreciate your frustration, and I know that my words are not going to satisfy you, but I just want you to know that, we hear you, and it's the issue that keeps many of us up at night trying to figure out how can we make sure that everyone has a home, and it's something that we will continue to work on.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. I would certainly agree. There are no further questions, Mr. Vickers. Again, thank you very kindly for making presentation.
Well, I'm going to vote everyone in. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vickers. Okay, up next, there was a written submission from Laurie Mark, but the next delegate would be Kate Willis from MHBC Planning.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening as a delegate for the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. My name is Kate Wills, and I'm an associate with MHBC Planning, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Pierre Chauvin, who was unable to make the meeting this evening. I am here in support of the proposed application at 1668 King Street East, and ask that Council consider approval of the bylaw and recommendation of staff with the additional floor space ratio to take the building to 7.6 as requested by our team at the Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee meeting on September 12th, 2022. In response to the comments received at the meeting, MHBC has provided a letter to Mr. Garrett Stevenson, which I understand has been circulated to Council and the committee, addressing the concerns of the committee for the application. We trust that this letter satisfies the committee, or the comments of the committee and Council. I'm available this evening to assist in addressing questions from Council and the public in advance of making your decision. Mr. Stephen Litt from Vive Development is also here this evening to further discuss how Council comments have been addressed and to answer questions as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the delegation? I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we would ask then the next delegate, Mr. Stephen Litt.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for having us back. Wanted to also acknowledge the two delegates ago. Frustration with homelessness is something we all need to talk about more. The Region of Waterloo actually circulated a survey with some tools to the development community to discuss what would help. I think that some steps are happening in the right direction, but there's got to be a lot more one-on-one, intensive, detailed discussions. So, specifically to our application before us tonight, so wanted to address the affordable housing discussion. So we're here to commit a $200,000 donation to the Working Center. The Working Center is very near and dear to my heart. My Uncle Richard passed away last spring. He lived at 47 Charles, a building that we renovated years ago. So big fans of the Mancinis and the work that they do. Last time I also spoke about a project that council has not seen before that went through the site plan process and a minor variance at King Cameo. I want to get into a little bit more detail. So it's a 948 unit project under the CMHC RCFI, Rental Construction Financing Initiative Program. I just want to highlight what we can do in the mid-market to help housing supply in the crisis that we're in. So that building is 40%, speaking to sustainable presentation prior, 40% greater, 40% improvement upon the 2017 National Building Code. So totally off gas, which is fantastic. It uses heat source air pumps to heat and cool the entire complex, both heating and domestic water. The entire building is at 90% of market rents. So this is a program audited by CMHC. And there's 4 one-bedrooms at $1,200 a month. We partnered with Compass Refugee Center. So again, it's very difficult in this inflationary market to commit to specific affordable targets when we're at a point where we're at a conceptual stage, an official plan amendment zone change. We have to get through sort of detailed underwriting and really understand our costs to get more into the nuts and bolts of a project. So again, to speak to some of the buildings that we're leasing right now or completely leased. So our 388 King project, 10% of the units are at median rental household income for 20 years. So that program, that sort of same metric of 20 years and 10% we're using that same formula because we can at 242 Queen and our 528 Lancaster project. So highlights a number of ways that we're trying to tackle the affordable housing space, again, as a mid-market rental housing developer. So I remain to answer any questions that are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Litt. Just before we get to any questions, I've just heard from some of the Zoom participants they're having a little bit of difficulty hearing, so if you could just maybe raise the microphones up a little bit. Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
No problem.
So can you help us understand how when you have these affordable or attainable units and you look to have a unit that's at market rate or 90% of market rate, can you tell us how are you making sure, or how is the community making sure that those are remaining affordable within the time frame that you mentioned?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's right in the financing documents. So right in the mortgage that gets registered on title, there's commitments that rent rolls get audited every year. And if you don't, it's no different than you not paying a mortgage payment. So there's recourse. They can take the mortgage away. They can foreclose, all this other stuff. So it's no different than any other covenant on a mortgage. So it's audited every year. Yeah. It models similar to what the region's done with IAH. So our project in Cambridge, 31-unit renovation project of a derelict retirement home, it's the same deal. So that building's been operating a couple of years, and we submit our audited rent rolls every year. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll have more questions of staff later. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Litt, for seeing and recognizing the conversation around the horseshoe in respect to consideration towards affordable housing. So this is definitely a movement in the right direction for your contribution to the Working Center, and that's one organization that can definitely use the extra assistance. So I'm glad to see that. In respect to your additional request for increase in the FSR, do you want to comment anything on that? And I'm sure your consultants have had conversations with staff.
Sure.
And have you had fruitful conversations with that as well?
Yeah, I believe staff can confirm that the building still complies with the tall building guideline. Parking regulations are still within the realm of functioning well. So the past 2 weeks have given staff an opportunity to review all that. So, yep.
Okay, fantastic. The other thing is, I just want to touch in. the fact that you are more catered towards mid-tier rental market. So these are not condos, these are not for purchase, so this is a rental market alone. And the development application before us, this will be, because it's through CMHC financing, this will be 90% of market rent as well?
Yeah, so, I mean, by the time this project goes to construction, I'm not sure what the environment will look like. These programs are always changing. The program I mentioned is our King Cameo project, RCFI, but to be honest, to make any rental project work, be it private, be it public, be it not-for-profit, you need to effectively use one of these CMHC programs, so.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good, thank you so much. Mr. Chair, as well, just a confirmation with staff regarding the extra request for the FSR increase, and if staff are in support, I will put that as an amendment.
Okay, that will, yes, so we'll have to get to that, but that will require waiving notice of motion. But before we get to that, are there any more questions? Not seeing anyone on Zoom. There are no more questions from you, Mr. Litt. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so questions of staff. Councillor Marsh, did you have questions of staff? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, there's more delegates, so can we go to that first, please?
Oh, apologies, 1 second here. There is, my apologies. Next delegate would be Georgina Georgiou.
Good evening, Council. I've enjoyed living in this community for many years. I love the sense of community with the neighbors helping out neighbors and the calm of this area, and I think everyone wants to keep the sense of community. I ask you to keep in mind I'm just an average citizen. I do not have expertise in building codes or economics, etc. I'm simply just stating the concerns for me, as well as the people who didn't come to speak, as they are frustrated and feel defeated by this process. I understand that these are new, complex situations in our growing community, and we are expecting our councillors to be experts in building sustainable and inclusive cities, and putting trust in our city planners and city staff to thoroughly review every application for its impact on our city and environment. I'm opposed to the current development at 1668 King Street as it currently stands. I recommend this development needs to be adjusted to become inclusive for those who live or will live in our community. I feel the current plan does not support people of all incomes or all stages in life, whether they be single, planning a family, have children, or just simply downsizing. When this project was first proposed a year ago, we asked for a few simple things. Firstly, 3 bedrooms to accommodate families and people who need roommates to afford a place to live. It was also stated by Mr. Litt in the last meeting that the immediate need is for 1 and 2 bedrooms. But shouldn't we be building for longevity, especially if we're trying to save on farmland and creating fewer houses and create an intensified community? Secondly, we ask for affordable units. I believe these are essential for all buildings so we don't create separation in our communities by income. We need people to interact with all races, all income levels, so we create a diversified Kitchener, not a segregated one. Affordable housing, as we all know, is 30% of one's income. The article published by CTV News Kitchener on July 18th cited that a person would need to make $75,000 a year to be considered affordable, using the average cost of a 1-bedroom at $1,639, thus impossible for the average person to live in a 1-bedroom. Thirdly, we ask for connectivity from Eastwood Collegiate located on Weber. There are existing crosswalks and bus stops that align on Weber and King Street in front of the proposed site, where initially they were put there due to students getting hit by cars. In many documents supplied for this development, 5 was promoting accessibility and walkability for the public, yet they have not incorporated a path. Councillor Sarah Marsh and planner Craig Dumark came to the site where they observed many students cutting through the space to get to the bus stops. We have the opportunity here to ensure the safety of students and pedestrians. Can VIVE maybe somehow give the land beside the building back to the city so we can maintain the walkway and provide accessibility? It's not abnormal in our community to have cross-throughs like we do all the way through the Rockway area. 1 year ago, we brought up the possible issues of the flight path as well as the height of these buildings. We were advised there was no height restrictions and the builder could have gone 34 stories. At the last meeting, the builder requested 2 additional floors to be built to max height with no changes in the existing plan, like parking spaces, etc. How can we only hear now that there's a real limitation? I don't believe this building should exceed 20 to 23 stories initially requested just because they can, when they have not accommodated any of our asks. What would make sense, to build less floors, to get housing completed faster, or to focus on the now? Lastly, by looking at Toronto, I'm not convinced the more rental availability will mean affordable rental costs. Thus, I'm requesting Council to defer this project until development takes the actual needs of the average people who will be living in the area and considers the safety of the students at the school, as well as there will be more accidents. We cannot let these developers rush us into building an unpracticable monstrosity. These buildings will remain in our community for decades to come. We need to build for the future, not only for the now. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Georgiou. There are a couple of questions for you. First, if I can find my mouse here. There we go. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you so much for bearing with us through other topics and then now to come in and provide your presentation. I know that when you first reached out to me over a year ago, it was your first time engaging about a development issue, and you have come incredibly far in learning so much about how it all works. And so thank you for bringing forward your delegation tonight. It was perfectly spoken, and I think you hit all the notes that you've shared with me about your concerns, and frankly, I share your concerns. I feel that you make some very valid points, and I think that as much as there are very severe limitations on what we can and cannot do, especially now that the city has not already created, in our plans, our long-term plans, the need for that connectivity. We can't then put the burden all on one property owner, right? But these conversations have brought to light some important topics that I think that we absolutely need to bring forward and add to our long-term plans so that we can implement them, and including that connection. That's just my response to you. I actually don't. Sorry, Chair Davey, I don't actually have any questions for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Not a problem. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Gina, for coming in. My question has to do with that connectivity aspect of the site. I think at the meeting 2 weeks ago, I asked the question about where the pathway that students take right now comes out in relation, like onto King Street, in relation to the bus stop. Can you describe that area to me?
They're literally right across the street. So the one crosswalk is from in front of the school to where Popeye's gym is, maybe, I don't know, like 10 feet down. The other crosswalk is across the street that connects King Street to the Rockway Gardens, and they're basically aligned.
Aligned with the bus stop?
Yes.
And, I mean, you may not know the answer to this question, but presumably that bus stop was put there for the students at Eastwood, would be?
Yes, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who also drop off their children and park currently in the Popeyes gym. So, and I think for the bus stop, I think there's an actual bend in the road so the buses can pull off to the side.
Okay, so safety is certainly a big issue, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm like Councillor Marsh, I share many of your concerns, and I thank you for expressing them here to us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, question Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thanks, Mr. Drow, for coming in. I do appreciate some of the comments that you made with your presentation. I'm just wondering, because you know, one of the things that you're focusing is on student safety and all that. Have you connected with the school board at all to discuss that?
I did mention it to them, and they say they have representatives that work with council.
Pardon
or
me,
with
can
the
you repeat
city.
that? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I spoke with the school, and they say they have representatives who speak with the city regarding these. So what they did with that information, I don't know.
Okay. I know what that means, but thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, there's one more, Councillor Schneider.
Question of staff.
Oh, question of staff, okay. No more questions for you. Thank you kindly for taking the time this evening. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, if everyone could queue back in then for questions of staff. Councillor Singh, go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Davey. So actually, this is a good segue to questions, or at least in respect to the concerns of the delegation regarding the pathway. And it's good that Councillor Ioannidis brought up the consideration if the school board was consulted or received any comments as part of the public consultation process. Did we hear any issues or criticism as to the lack of, I guess, private land access towards crossing onto the other side of King Street?
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Thank you. Through the chair, following the PSIC meeting on September 12th, the school board did provide comments just to let us know that they watched the meeting and had interest on the option for a potential connection there, acknowledging one, there wouldn't be potentially one through this application, and would rather be looking for a connection through future applications.
Okay, all right, so that there would be future opportunity to have some sort of access then?
Potentially through adjacent properties, yes. That's
okay,
correct.
That's fair. And the other thing is regarding the bus stop. I'm assuming the region was consulted, or the region at least takes part in comments in early application process for a zone change. Do we hear any concerns regarding the bus stop that's on King Street?
That is correct. The region is involved in the circulation of OPAs, ZBAs, and no concerns are raised regarding the existing bus stops.
Okay, excellent. So I'll get to my earlier point of giving consideration to the applicant with new information that they were able to receive a little bit late into their application process regarding the height restriction because of the flight overpath, where initially they thought that they could only go 22, 23 stories. And now they're advised that they can get 2 extra floors. That would require them to apply for an increased FSR. And they have been in consultation with our staff and yourself. Do you have any comment on that or any consideration?
That is correct. Through the chair, the applicant did provide us with updated drawings with an increased FSR of 7.6 and a decreased parking rate from 0.64 to 0.6. That was circulated to our transportation services, Region of Waterloo interim design staff, who all have no concerns with the amendments to increase the FSR or reduce the parking rate.
Okay, so staff have no concerns or issues with the amended request to have the FSR increased to 7.6 and the parking requirement being reduced to 0.6%.
That is correct.
Excellent, okay. So, Mr. Chair, again, if I can get clarification from the clerk as well, I'm assuming that this is the application that's already before us, it's pertinent to the application, so amendment, I'm not sure if a notice of motion is necessarily required. So if the Madam Clerk could answer.
Yeah, I'd look to the clerk to answer.
Through the chair to the council member. So I believe Mr. Garrett Stevenson could speak to it. Is waiving notice in the Planning Act? It's not waiving a notice of motion.
It doesn't require waiving a notice of motion.
It does not require a notice of motion, but it does require waiving a section of the Planning Act.
Mr. Stevenson, you want to speak to that?
Thank you, through the chair. Because the bylaw there's two bylaws in front of council this evening. One was prepared after the notice of the statutory meeting. So the waiving notice is that we don't need to advertise a new statutory meeting. So this is something that is fairly routine when a bylaw is amended between planning committee and council.
Okay, that makes more sense. So the amendment would outline that it's requesting of waiving of notice of the Planning Act requiring the notice with the change in the FSR to 7.6 and the parking requirement at 0.6%.
Correct. So just so everyone's on the same page, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, but so the way this will work is we will first vote on the waiving of the notice of motion, and if that clears, then we would vote in that amendment, and if that passes, then we would vote on the main motion. Am I correct?
So through the chair, so certainly he could move the motion with the amendment, and so the motion that was deferred from PSIC, and then just adding the clause, and I believe we can display that on the screen with the two clauses together.
Right, sorry, yes, waiving for the Planning Act, exactly. Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may include a provision that says that no further notice would be provided, and that could be included in your resolution as part of your decision. So I don't believe you need to vote on whether or not to waive notice. You can just, as part of your resolution of your decision, should you approve a bylaw that's different than the one that was attached to the PSIC agenda, if you include that language, you satisfy the requirement of the Planning Act.
Okay, well that's helpful, thank you. And then, sorry, looking to the clerk then, so then that would not require any sort of supermajority, that would be a regular vote? Okay, very good. Okay, going back to the queue then, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. The delegation brought up, something's been brought up a couple of times, and that is the issue of 3-bedroom units. Are there any statistics on the demand for 3-bedroom units that's available?
You want to take that, Mr. Stevenson?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to answer that question because I've been reviewing the census data that came out on housing last week, and it's something that the demand for 3-bedroom units and the request for 3-bedroom units is something that we hear often with development applications. So it's something at the forefront of our research. Council may recall that we are partnering with the University of Waterloo to do a missing middle study. As part of that, we're looking at how do we provide housing types of all unit sizes for all people in all stages of their lives across the entire city, and what tools or mechanisms do we need to employ either within our official plan or our zoning bylaw to help to achieve different unit types. With the 3-bedroom units, so one of the things that we've worked with the industry on, and we've asked them to, and council will remember providing direction to certain applications in the last few months where 3-bedroom units were included and they agreed to market them. We were looking for research on that marketing to see how those sales were happening. Obviously, we know now that condo sales are there's an unusual period right now because of the changes to the interest rate, so we can't really gather that data. I don't think it would be a true reflective of the demand just because condo sales are quite varied now. When we looked at the census data, what we know is in the city of Kitchener-Cross, 61% of all of our units, so we have 99,805 dwelling units in 2029, and of those 61% are 3 bedrooms or more. So we know that we have a large supply of 3-bedroom units within the city, and we also know based on the demographic data that our average household size is less than 2 people per dwelling unit, and that 60% of our households, it's 58% of our households are 1 person or 2 person. So what that all basically boils down to is that we have, with the data what we can gather, is that 27,000 3-bedroom units, or 27,000 dwelling units that have 3 bedrooms or more actually have fewer than 2 people in them. So we have a lot of units where they aren't fully, they're not fully utilized, all of the bedrooms. So that's why we're starting to see the demand for 1 and 2 bedroom, which is about 15% of the total dwelling units. So all of that is to say that we need to continue to have a variety of unit types. We have a lot of larger units that don't have very many people living in them, and we do have a demand for 1 and 2 bedroom units, which aligns with the data that we're seeing, that's our largest percentage of household size.
Okay, thank you for that. Very informative.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I want to take a minute or two to just read from a delegate who really wanted to be here tonight but was unable to make it. This is from Ms. Mark, who lives across the street from the development. She says, "I love my neighborhood and the people in it. The process of reviewing building applications and what is wrong or right is quite a task for someone who does not have a building background. I've read them all and did my best to comprehend what was going on. That being said, I do understand how overwhelming it will be to myself and my neighbors in the future to look out our windows at 2 extremely large buildings at 22 and 23 floors high. Please do not allow any higher. At the last meeting, a request was made for 2 additional floors, leaving even less space, which will indeed cause overflow parking throughout the neighborhood for years to come. Additional parking spaces are needed already for this building at 22 and 23 floors. I've been told to call bylaw if the overflow occurs, but by not building appropriate spaces, this then becomes the residents' problem later on, not the builders. For over a year, I have conversed with planning on concerns, issues such as height, parking, safe walkway for pedestrians, units for people on a fixed income, and currently none of this is included, so I am very frustrated with this process. I understand that we need rentals in Kitchener, however, I struggle with the rental amounts to live in these buildings. As we have seen many cross from one street to another in this neighborhood, accommodating pedestrian traffic between Weber and King would be welcome. And I'll just close on sharing her point that the current bus stop, the bus lane, and the traffic light on King have all been designed to allow for students to cross at this exact site. And so if a crosswalk is not built there, then this would need to be addressed. Remember that the traffic light was installed to ensure a safe passage, is what she says. So staff, I want to ask about the mid-block crossing that everyone is asking about, that we all know is needed for the students. Can you tell me why this site is not, a compatible spot to have a mid-block crossing?
Mr. Dumer?
Thank you. So through the early stages of this application, we did look into opportunities for a mid-block connection. However, that connection would have to either go through the building or along the property line with 90-degree turns in the design as the property is irregular in shape. So an access through the building, it would require access with internal elevators and stairs due to the grade change between Weber to King. Similar to how people access Duke Street to King Street here at City Hall, only the difference being that City Hall is a public building where the proposed development is a private development, so that would not function. A walkway along the north or south property lines were also reviewed. However, this is problematic because there'd be blind corners. It would also potentially result in significant reduction of the parking garage, as the entire building is built essentially from property line to property line. So it's not something that was completely ignored. It was explored. However, it's not something that would be achieved through this development. Rather, when we're updating our secondary plans, we can look at possible connection for sites adjacent to this property or nearby. Okay,
so I'll come back to that in a second. So then, with regard to the fact that it's a given when we have new multi-dwelling units, there are also not just people moving in there, but many, many dogs. And so is it possible to include in the site plan conditions to require dog waste stations on the site of the new development as well as wherever we need them in the city?
Through the chair, it wouldn't be a condition necessary, a site plan, but through the site design, when we're reviewing detailed plans and our landscape plans on site, it's something we can ensure that is provided, yes.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Acting Mayor, I want to add to what I believe Councillor Singh has already, you've put forward this motion. So I just want to add another clause, and that would be to provide staff, to direct staff to further explore a mid-block connection through the upcoming King Street East secondary plan process. And I'd like to ask that these be voted on separately with a recorded vote at some point. Thanks.
Sorry, Councilor Marsh, for clarity, can you repeat that request? And sorry, does it relate to this existing property? Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, it was in the, yes, it's tangentially related, and I believe that as much as it's not, because it's been requested of this site, and staff have indicated that it's not possible on this site, I want to add to the motion that we are dealing with tonight, that's a direction to staff. Okay,
no, I just want to be clear that it doesn't directly impact the applicant or his property at this time. Okay, perfect, thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask a question of staff about the, at an earlier stage of this process, it was mentioned that residents were told that the sky was the limit. And at that point, the proposal was for this 20-story building and a 23-story building. And now we're being told that, well, no, wait, we have new information, but if the sky was the limit then, the 23 and 25 or whatever the new proposal is would have been acceptable. So what's happened or what's changed?
Mr. Dumart?
So through the chair, the zoning bylaw, which is applicable law, does not have a building height cap. The official plan does not have a building height cap. Rather, both are regulated by floor space ratio. Where the height cap comes in is the airport zoning regulations. And airport zoning regulations are regulated by NAV Canada, which is a private company that works for the federal government. So what the applicant did was they hired their own consultant to investigate those airport zoning regulations and determine that the heights that they thought could build to were incorrect, and rather they could go taller, additional 6 meters. So again, airport zoning regulations are separate from zoning bylaws. There's not a public process to change them. Zoning regulations for airports change all the time if flight paths are altered. And it's, you know, they are similar, obviously, in determining what the heights of buildings can be, but in this case here, the applicable law would be the zoning bylaw, and in which case there is no building height cap.
So everything that was discussed and presented at the neighborhood information meetings comes to be kind of erased just because, right? Suddenly what residents were expecting is no longer what can be expected. And we go from an FSR 4 to 7.2 to 7.6, maybe tomorrow 7.8. You know, there has to be some degree of certainty and understanding for the community as to what's being proposed and what we're working with, does there not?
Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly we endeavor to give the most up-to-date and accurate meeting or information at all of our neighborhood meetings. I attend all of them, and I know that the team, they always present the information that we know at the time. And the information at the time of those meetings was that there was no maximum height within the zoning bylaw. Mr. Dumart is correct. The federal regulations for the airport approach are regulated by the federal government, and the region implements those. So as part of their commenting during the application, they applied those regulations based on the elevation above sea level of individual properties, and then they can advise based on the angle of approach for the aircraft that they're planning for the airport and the types of aircraft they expect in future and where the runway location is. Based on the elevation above sea level, they can determine what the maximum height would be, which would be regulated by the federal government. So in this case, that information was provided. The developer hired their own consultant to reconfirm some of those assumptions that the region made as part of their commenting, and there is about 6 meters of additional space in between where there can be the additional height. So certainly the team does provide accurate information to the public as part of those neighborhood meetings, but as Mr. Dumart noted, sometimes things change through the process.
Yeah, and I'm not really questioning the information that staff has provided, I'm just questioning the process. One other question that might not be totally relevant to this bill, but when we talk about 3-bedroom units, and I understand from 2018 to 2020, there are absolutely 0 new 3-bedroom units built. I'm not sure if that's the region or the city, it might be the region. How many of the 61% of the 3-bedroom units that you refer to are in the core or around the major transit station areas?
Mr. Stevenson?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have the geographic data yet, so the census is releasing the information slowly. As we get it, we continue to review that. What we do know, though, is that most of the housing stock within our major transit station areas that were built prior to 2016 is low-rise residential housing. We have heritage conservation districts within close proximity to our downtown within our MTSAs. We have a lot of established low-rise residential areas. What has been the most significant change is the increase in the amount of high-rise residential that's occurred in the last census period, which is 2016 to 2021, and that's where we're seeing the increase in those types. But overall, the majority of units in Kitchener as a whole, as a census area, 61% of them are 3 bedrooms or more, and certainly we're continuing to explore that, and we're trying to understand exactly where the need is and where maybe there is a lack.
Okay, well, I think that's really important because, you know, I'd hate to think that we're driving families out of the core because we're building studio and 1-bedroom apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ennis?
Thank you, Chair Davey. I guess my question is, and I'm not sure which staff member, if it's Mr. Stevenson or Mr. Dumart, can someone give me a rough estimate of what our rental demand is and what's needed in this community? Do you know the current number?
Mr. Stevenson?
I don't have the current number, but it's very low.
It's very low, that there's a low demand for market
Sorry,
units?
I should clarify. The available rental housing stock, the vacancy rate is very low. There's very little rental housing supply on the market.
So is it safe to say we are incredibly undersupplied when it comes to rental units?
I would say that we are undersupplied in all housing types right now.
Okay. Can you offhand tell us any other rental units that are being built right now in the city in this scale?
I could pull up the map, and so there are quite a few. So we have seen an increase in the last few months of purpose-built rental housing, just the market change, the financing models that are available through CMHC, and the fact that condo sales have slowed. So we are starting to see significantly more purpose-built rental housing applications come forward. And as council knows, when they're in front of you this evening, there's still construction time, and then it's usually quite a few years before those become occupied.
Okay. I guess my other question would have been, how many units are in this project again? I can't recall.
So Mr. Dumart will have the figures in front of him, but I believe it's 616, and if there's an additional 2 floors, it would be 658.
Okay. All right, I'll save my comments for later.
Thank you. Finally, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. With regards to this walkthrough, I just want to clarify. The land that is being used to walk through, this is not City of Kitchener land or school board land, is it?
Mr. Dumar?
Thank you. Through the chair, no, it is not. It is privately owned land.
Okay. So I just wanted to be clear on that, that you know, this is sort of an unofficial agreement or use that students have walked through private property to get to Weber Street. And I assume that's because the bus stop is where it is. And I'm just wondering if it might be possible, or the region has been approached, to maybe move the bus stop further to Jackson Avenue. So that would allow the students then to get off the bus, walk safely down the sidewalk to Jackson Avenue, turn right onto Weber Street, and then walk down to the crosswalk to safely cross the street as well. I think, you know, while it's been great for all these years to have this unofficial walkthrough, it would appear that it's time to make something permanent, and the onus shouldn't be on a private landowner to provide that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's 2 other properties between the current location and what is Montgomery Avenue that would be walk-throughable too, again, but both private properties.
That is correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify the walkthrough, that it's maybe something the school board needs to do some work on as well.
Okay, thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Singh for a second round, just a couple quick questions myself. It wasn't actually put to staff, but I'm inclined to support Councillor Marsh's separate motion, but I'm always cognizant of staff's workload and the ability to fit it in. So first question is, do you fully understand the request being made? And second question is, can you accommodate it within the current workload? Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I understand the request is the direction to further explore this as part of the secondary plan process. We are taking that work back up in 2023. As part of the secondary process, we do always look at mobility and pedestrian enhancements, and council may remember from some of the parts plans that were developed, we did identify connections elsewhere. So with Councillor Marsh's proposal and the resolution that has been proposed, it will give us the ability, and we'll be able to respond to that as part of the secondary plan process.
You made that one easy for us. Thank you. Actually, that is my only question. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, it's for comment.
Okay, so before I go forward, I need a seconder for Councillor Singh's motion. Seconder, Councillor Ioannidis. And I also need a seconder for Councillor Marsh's motion. Seconded by Councillor Chapman. Okay. Looking at my Zoom folks over there, no questions. Okay, good. So now into comments. If you have any comments on this, I would ask you to keep in. Councillor Singh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor Davey. I think through our questions of staff and the delegation, a sound argument and rationale has been put forward regarding the necessity and the need for approval of a development project of this size and on this location. I think the information is very clear before us. Our community is grappling with housing issues. We see in recent articles where, the influx of new people moving into our city, with more international students coming to our communities to broaden their education in post-secondary education, that they can't find housing options either. They're going door to door, knocking on houses and seeing, hey, do you have a place to stay? That is a clear reflection of a very small housing availability for rental, especially. Over the last 4 years that we've had an influx of development, and especially more densification in our core through more high-rises, the bulk of it has been towards condos. The last 4 years, I think I can only count maybe a few that was purpose-built rentals, and this is one of them. And that's where I think a greater focus needs to be put place, and that's where I really advocated and pushed as part of the budget process for 2022 that staff increase their staff complement in the planning department so that we can accelerate the development of purpose-built rentals. And council supported that increase in capacity and resource. And now we have before us an application that does all those things. It provides 600 plus housing units towards mid-level market rental housing. And at the same time, thankfully, the developer has seen the request from this council and the serious need in this community to give back and support overall supportive and assisted housing initiatives that we're seriously dealing with as well. I think we have a balanced application, an application that's not directly adjacent to low-rise residential, application that asks for increased, intensity for development that's adjacent to a park amenity, the Rockway, the gardens, that's close to higher transit. It hits all the parameters that we really look for to see where higher development can really fit, and this does. And as for the extra 2 stories, the applicant did not have the right information when they made the application from agencies that perhaps were not accurate in relaying that information. They had to seek out that information on their own accord. And so that shouldn't be held against them. That argument aside, just the need for extra rental units, if you can build 60 more units, well, that's great. We're building 60 more units in an area where it can accommodate it, where it does fit. In that regard, I think this is a good development application, and hopefully not just the application with its approval, but with its development and construction proceeds at its quickest, and I hope for council support as well.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I want to echo many of the comments that Councillor Singh has mentioned. Unfortunately, I was trying to go through our Housing for All strategy to get what our demand was back in 2019, and if I recall correctly, it was quite significant with regards to rental units, and with no doubt, the way the climate has changed in the last 3 years, or 3 to 4 years in particular with interest rates, we are definitely going to be seeing a slowdown with condo developments, and definitely be replaced with purpose-built units. So I think it's more important more than ever to, with the housing crisis, that we need to continue with building housing, whether it's purpose-built or for any other reason. And in particular, the purpose-built rental is in my mind an incredibly underserviced market, and that's why I'm very supportive of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, I agree with some of the comments that have already been made. I am thankful that we have developers like Vive coming forward to add more purpose-built rentals onto the market. I also actually think that this development, previously with the 22 and 23 story proposal, was appropriate height, even if the neighbors were not keen about it, because it wasn't having a major impact on the surrounding neighborhood with regard to shadow. I do wish that our clumsy and slow-moving processes that we have with regard to planning, regulations, secondary planning, with regard to inclusionary zoning. 8 years ago, when I became a councillor for the first time, I was told that, yeah, we're going to have inclusionary zoning, we're working on it, it's coming, and then things changed provincially, and then it was, oh, I don't think we're going to be able to, now we can, and we still don't have it. And so I urge my colleagues and my colleagues at the region to get let's do what we can to make it happen as soon as possible, so that the residents who are coming to us saying, we want more affordable housing units in every single new build, that let's work towards that. Let's have inclusionary zoning, and let's not only have it in the major transit station areas, let's have it everywhere, because we can see before us that affordable housing is at a crisis point already, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. I do take issue, though, with how the applicant has just applied to walk on 2 additional stories for each tower without changing anything with regard to parking, without providing a proper shadow study, wind study, etc. I feel it's very important that if the citizens have to follow all the steps along the process where they can provide their input, that we should be respecting the process, and that we should have, if we have any amendments, even if they are legitimate amendments, we should be making sure they are done in a way that respects the process, respects all of the members of the public, and informing them in a timely way, not at the 11th hour. And that is why I don't agree with adding the two floors.
Thank you, Mayor Voinovich.
Thanks very much, Acting Mayor Davey, and certainly there's been a lot of good input and a lot of good discussion around this particular proposal. And you know, with any time there's change in any neighborhood, it obviously brings about some concern. I think that's to be that's both understood and to be expected. And the processes around these types of projects are never easy, particularly when, you know, at times we're reliant on other agencies, orders of government and so on to provide their input. I think, as has been noted, you know, our staff have had an opportunity to review this project, and it meets all of the key planning principles that need to be considered as part of its review. And for me, one of the things that are most compelling is that it doesn't have an abutting impact on existing low-density residential, because on one side you've got Rockaway Gardens, and on the other side you've got Eastwood Collegiate. I do understand the you know, some of the frustration and concern around the 2 stories, but again, as staff have indicated, this is not something that has a that causes them great concern, and details of which, particularly around the shadow, wind, and so on, would be determined later in the process as part of the site plan review process. But it would not have an existential change on their views in terms of recommending this project going forward in its present form. So I am prepared to support it, with the understanding that some of these items will be worked through in the site plan process. I'm also prepared to support Councillor Marsh's motion with respect to the work in the secondary plan to create a pathway between King Street and the high school. I suppose, you know, the alternative, you know, can be that at some point maybe there's a discussion with the region around, you know, is in fact the appropriate routing along King Street, or might it actually be better to be along Weber in that section? And that's perhaps something that you know, can be looked at as part of the process as well going forward, as the project eventually comes to fruition. But we do know that there is an incredible need for housing right now in our community, including rental stock. And so I'm appreciative of the fact that Vive and others like Drulo, who are currently building downtown, are actually filling that gap in the market that we know where there's demand. So those would be my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I have concerns with, or I sympathize with the residents who are expressed disappointment with the outcome that we're faced with here and what we're talking about. Since they've been involved in the whole process since the very beginning. And yes, it's great that staff has been consulted and they sign off on it, but maybe we haven't consulted the residents to sign off on this in a way that that others have been. I think there's, the things that they're asking for and have been asking for since the beginning have not been in any way accommodated in this proposal. So they asked for 3 bedrooms and the need for diverse families and greater diversity in the neighborhood. They asked for affordable units. They asked for connectivity. And it seems that none of these have actually been met. When we talk about housing need and housing stock, I agree, we do need more purpose-built rentals. I don't know the percentage, but I know many of the condos are not owner occupied, so they become rentals as well. I also wanted to point out that there was an article in the Record recently that referred to the Garment Street buildings as being only 1/3 occupied. 2/3 of those units are unoccupied. Maybe staff or someone can give me some insight into that in the context of the need for more housing units. If that's any indication of what other buildings occupancy rate is, then it'd be nice if we had those figures to speak to. So while I will support Councillor Marsh's proposal to go through the secondary plan process and see if we can come up with that form of connectivity. Out of respect for the residents and the time and the thought they've put into it, I would support the initial proposal, but I would reject at this time the modified proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start by saying I'm going to support Councillor Marsh's sort of secondary motion that is attached to this for good reason. As for the main motion, this development is a good development, and it is very, very, very much needed. I've been following the supply issue in this country and province for quite some time, and it's no longer a matter of opinion, it's a matter of mathematics. And my understanding is things are only going to get worse. The province has set some lofty targets, 1.5 million homes by 2030, 2031, which would be an unprecedented amount of building, I believe double anything that's ever been done in history. So how we're going to find the framers, the electricians, the plumbers to be able to do this work is going to be a tremendous challenge. So any opportunity that we have to try and lighten that load, we have to have some extremely compelling evidence against it to not support it. So I'm happy to support this motion as moved by Councillor Singh, and I will take the vote on Councillor Singh's motion now. Those in favor? Is someone asked for a recorded vote? Oh, apologies. A recorded vote's been asked for. Just a Zoom wrinkle, no worries. Okay, so recorded vote's been called. Zoom people, I'll get to you in a moment. And I mean Zoom people with the utmost respect. That's okay. We're going to have to do a quick revote, please, on this. We're voting on Councillor Singh's motion. Oh, okay, certainly. Okay, and then for the people that are joining us by Zoom, Councillor Johnson?
In favor.
Thank you. And Mayor Vrbanovich?
In favor.
Very good. And that carries. Okay, we will now vote on Councillor Marsh's attached motion. Was that recorded vote as well? I don't recall. Sure, recorded vote. Oh, it's already flashing, it's fine. Okay, and Councillor Johnson?
In favor.
Thank you. Mayor Vrbanovich?
In favor.
And that carries unanimously. Okay, very good. Okay, we're now going to move on to the reports of committees. So, Madam Clerk, I believe because the one item was referred, Councillor Chapman would only bring forward everything but that one, right? And then we deal with that one separately? Yeah, okay. Councillor Chapman.
So we're first going to look at, this is the one, the Paddington and the Ottawa Street one.
You could move all items of planning committee except for, I guess, 7. Yeah, you can move all items of planning committee except for 7.1E.
Okay, so it's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Singh that all items except 7.1C, you said? E. Of the Planning and Strategic Initiatives report be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, I just have I'd like to suggest that we add an amendment to the 7.1.D, 27 Roy Street. And that is based on what staff have shared with us as an option. I'm just going to find it. And it's really just to allow for the owner to have more flexibility should the space that is currently going to be zoned as a commercial unit not be viable, that space could be used as a fourth dwelling unit.
Okay, I need a seconder for that. Seconded by Councillor Chapman. Any questions? We'll deal with that one separately. Any questions on that amendment? Okay, those in favor of the amendment?
Through Mr. Chair, my
pardon?
apologies. The clerk and I were just consulting really quickly. 27 Roy Street, I believe, was amended at P6, so we need to add the waiving notice component for the Planning Act. Yes,
Yeah.
because we're going to waive that notice requirement similar to what we did at 1668 King
Okay,
Street.
great. Yep, and so for that waiving notice then,
That's
so then I have to
the
do the waiving notice vote and then
That's
the amendment vote? Okay.
Yep, so the fourth
Okay.
dwelling unit is noted in the motion that's on the agenda today, so we just need to add the waiving notice component.
Certainly. Okay, so the first vote is just waiving notice of motion on this. It has to be supermajority, but I don't think there'll be an issue. Those in favor? And there are none opposed. Very good. And now we're going to vote on Councillor Marsh's amendment. Those in favor? None are opposed. And now the main motion for 7.1D. Those in favor? And none are opposed. Very good. And now the balance of the report except for 7.1E. Those in favor? That carries unanimously. And 7.1E, I guess we would need a motion on this one. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, no, I had some questions. Can we ask questions?
Certainly.
Or do you need the motion first?
Actually, if you wanted to move it first, well, if you don't want to move it, then go ahead and ask questions.
Okay, my questions. So I'm just curious about, in a message we received from Mr. Stevenson earlier today, it says that should the church develop additional low-cost transitional housing or affordable housing, they would qualify for city affordable housing incentives. So I thought that was only available for not-for-profits, yet what's being proposed here is a for-profit development.
Mr. Stevenson.
Council, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Councillor Chapman, you are correct. The incentive programs are for not-for-profit arms. They do have a housing component as part of their congregation, so we would evaluate the criteria to ensure that they continue to satisfy and meet those requirements, and if they did, then they would qualify for those incentives.
So they're both profit-driven and not-for-profit. It seems odd that you could have it both ways. But anyway, okay, so that's my question. But I also had a couple questions that were brought to my attention by a resident and who was unable to be here tonight. His biggest concern is the traffic volume on Pattendon. And I know I've brought this up before. I'm just wondering from staff if there's, and I realize that there's been a no left turn sign put on Ottawa, so you can't turn onto Pattendon at that intersection. But can I get some reassurance from staff that once the development is completed, maybe even before that, that some sort of traffic study be done on Pattendon now, and then once it's completed, if there are concerns, that a subsequent traffic study be done to determine whether things are acceptable once the development is finished.
Go ahead, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. If Council were to direct us to evaluate the pre and post conditions as a result of this development application, I could certainly speak with the Director of Transportation and confirm when our next regular scheduled traffic counting would occur on Pattendon. If Council was looking for us to engage the professional services of a transportation consultant to conduct that study, I do believe that we would need resolution on that, and we would have to bring that back because we would have to ensure that there were budget available for that. So we do regularly and routinely do traffic counts. We do work with residents when there are complaints, so I can certainly, if it would satisfy Councillor Chapman, I can certainly bring that back to the Director of Transportation and request that those counts be notified the next time those counts are going to be completed, and I can update Council by email next week or the following this week.
I'd appreciate that, because even though traffic may not be able to come off Ottawa Street, once it's become a throughway, right, from Ottawa Street and down, and there are continued concerns about what Pattendon will look like after the development, but also with the left turn off Ottawa Street onto Mill Street, which creates quite a bit of congestion in that area. So yeah, so do we need a motion for that? For the traffic study?
Mr. Stevenson, I believe not. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I'm happy to find out that information of when the next traffic count is occurring, and I can update Council by email.
But that doesn't mean a deferral of this report or motion.
Should Council wish to defer this application, then you would have to vote on that as part of your resolution.
Right.
Okay. I do not see anyone else in the queue. Does someone want to move this?
Okay, wait, I'm not done.
Sorry?
Well, I had another comment from a resident.
Oh.
If I can just...
Sorry, more questions? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just relaying information, right, from a resident who is unable to attend. It reads here, his concern is the provision of affordable mixed housing in our community. This seems to like an excellent opportunity to consider this, especially given some of the innovative options that faith communities are exploring at present. And I know this was one of the reasons that some of my colleagues wanted the deferral. Is there any more information that we have on this?
Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you. We did receive the letter, which I sent to council by email. The congregation noted that they do provide housing services right now at little to no cost for Ukrainian refugees as well as other people who are experiencing homelessness. That's something that they're doing within their units, and it's a service that as a faith-based group they want to continue to provide. They don't have any funding source right now, and they have no formal affordable housing program, but as those opportunities do come up, they've indicated that they're interested in that, but at this time they can't confirm that they have any specific project in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, no one else in the queue. Could I get, is there any mover for this development? Moved by Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Ioannidis. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. Okay, those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Okay, so moving along. New business. Mayor Rabinovich, do you have a regional council update for us?
I don't have an update today, thank you.
No, no problem. Next, we'll move on to the notice of motion by Councillor Michaud.
Acting Chair Davey, it was brought to my attention by some residents in Ward 4 the amount of garbage that has been laying around the streets, and particularly around GRT stop signs. While I think it's it's incumbent on the citizens to pick up their garbage and be good stewards of their neighborhoods, it's also incumbent of the municipalities to give them the tools, in this case trash cans, to have a place to put. So I'm going to bring forward this motion. Whereas the Region of Waterloo proudly partners with local municipalities, Adopt a Road program, the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, and others to promote waste reduction and litter prevention across the region through the Cure of Litter programs. Whereas the Region of Waterloo is a service provider for Grand River Transit as well as a service provider for waste management. Whereas the Region of Waterloo has expressed their commitment to curing litter, but during the 2022 budget process approved the removal of 240 garbage receptacles from the Grand River Transit stops to achieve an in-year cost savings of $60,000 and an annual cost savings of $180,000 for 2023 and beyond. Whereas the Region of Waterloo's decision to remove the garbage receptacles at GRT stops does provide financial cost savings, the financial savings are arguably not offsetting the adverse impacts on the environment and do not support the region's commitment to curing litter. Whereas the volume of pedestrian activity at and around Grand River Transit stops would warrant waste receptacles to help manage litter within the city, and whereas the average distance someone will carry garbage before littering is 12 paces, and GRT stops are high pedestrian traffic locations. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Kitchener requests the Region of Waterloo to reinstall and manage garbage receptacles at the GRT stop locations to promote litter prevention, environmental leadership, and respond to the needs of our community. Therefore, it finally be resolved that this resolution be shared with all other municipalities with the Region of Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And was there a seconder for this item? Councillor Johnson? Very good. And Councillor Johnson, you are up in the queue. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Can I speak to it at this point, or?
I'm just going to look around. Does anyone have questions of staff at all, or yes, questions of staff? Yeah, just get you to, if it's just comment, I'll get you to hold on for just a sec. Councillor Ioannidis, question of staff?
Thank you, Chair Davey. I guess my question to staff is this the usual time that the region usually removes receptacles from the GRT stations?
Does anyone on staff know the answer to that question? Mr. Chapman?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's not my understanding that this is a typical operational seasonal impact. I was advised late last week that as a cost-saving measure during the budget process, GRT proposed reducing the number of garbage cans at GRT stops, and so that was a budget decision of Regional Council through the previous budget and is to be implemented as of September the 1st.
Okay. When do we put ours away as well?
Ms. McGoldrick.
So through the chair, we would normally put ours away as we're transitioning into winter, so that's late October, early November.
Okay. All right, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Question of staff, Councillor Schneider. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Singh.
Yes, sorry, I had initially had a comment, but a question came up after Councillor Ioannidis. Understanding that the region is taking this as a purely financial decision, and obviously we have many garbage receptacles across the city and our parks as well. Is there ability for us to have a cross-service agreement with the region or partner in a way that we can help to limit some of their costs if it's done by us, and it's still cost neutral for us, but done within our capacity? Or is it already done by us?
Ms. McGoldrick.
So through the chair, certainly the City of Kitchener, in terms of our servicing agreement with the region, does include debris pickup on regional roads kind of at a seasonal at the end of the winter. Certainly we would look to work with the region in terms of any joint service opportunity there may be to look at efficiencies and cost savings associated with this work. I can share just in terms of the city's process around our garbage receptacles, and I didn't provide quite a fulsome response to Councillor Ioannidis's question, and that the majority of receptacles we do keep out during the winter season, so all years. It's just those receptacles that we're not able to access because our vehicles can't access sites, and so certainly GRT stops are accessible year-round.
So staff wouldn't necessarily mind if, as part of the motion, if it was also encouraged the region to work with our staff for joint service agreement, if they were amenable to at least continue on this service.
So through the chair, absolutely. At any time, we're open to exploring opportunities for enhanced service delivery and shared services. So yes, we are certainly open to the discussion and looking at ways that we can support.
That's great. So I'll just ask Councillor Michaud, is that something you would be amenable? Or I don't necessarily need to put an amendment if you just want to amend your own motion, stating
that's
that.
fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just amendment that the region be advocated to consider working with our city staff for a joint service agreement that could continue delivering this.
No, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So if I can just make comments then, or
no, not just yet, sorry. If you could cue back in for your comment. Just one quick question again, Ms. McGoldrick. I didn't quite catch that. So we do not empty the regional receptacles, but we do clean up the debris at the side of the road? Is that what I just want to make sure I heard that correctly?
So through the chair, we do not do that garbage collection unless it is a city receptacle. So sometimes we do have city receptacles in close proximity to bus transit sites, trailhead locations. So that would be the receptacles that we would pick up from. And in terms of the debris pickup, it is infrequent. It would be that annual, after the snow melt debris pickup, that we would go out and do a blitz.
Okay, and if there was more garbage as a result of the region's actions, are we adequately compensated for the additional work that might be? Or is that something that we'd have to negotiate in a future contract?
So through the chair, I would need to double check because we changed our method of recovering costs. So this may be, I would need to double check the agreement. This may be a time and material recovery item, in which case the additional time required to clear debris from road would be recoverable.
Might be recoverable? Okay, thank you. Not burning. And sorry, I see a couple, Mayor Vrbanovich and Councillor Johnson, just raise your hand. Are either of you questions or you just comment?
I'm both.
You're both? Okay, so I didn't see who put their hand up first, but Councillor Johnson?
Sorry, the mayor had his hand up first. I now have a question as well. You go. Are you sure? Okay, thank you. Well, actually, my question arose after Councillor Singh's question. So Thank you. I'm loving this discussion. I've heard from many residents as well. In fact, Councillor Michaud and I had a discussion about what's been raised with us from residents. And one of the things that they mentioned was that they were concerned that we, the city, would then end up having to have bylaw, et cetera, come and be cleaning up the garbage. And that's something that I'm concerned about as well. So unless it's firmly in there, according with Councillor Singh, and if we're making an amendment here, I'm concerned that we'll end up, this will be downloaded onto us to somehow be paying for this once the garbage cans are, well, the garbage cans are gone. But I don't know if there's, and I think that Ms. McGoldrick was trying to come up with maybe what some costing and things might be. That's difficult to do on the spur of the moment, but that it's a concern of mine how much this might cost. And Ms. McGoldrick, maybe you can comment on that, or not.
Ms. McGoldrick, go ahead.
So through the chair, I don't have information regarding costing. What I can say is that we have seen an increase in household waste disposal at city receptacles through the course of changes to the regional pickup program. So we are seeing impacts associated with increased needs to remove garbage and debris, household debris from city-maintained waste receptacles.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor Verbenovich, question only, please, and then cue back in for your comment.
Thank you. So yeah, just on the question, and you may not have the answer for this today, but it would be good to get a sense. You know, just throughout this month, how much more have we had to do in the area of the bus shelters since the bins have been removed? Certainly my sense in terms of driving by some of them is the amount of garbage in the area has become quite excessive. And so I'm concerned that in some ways this has just simply become a downloading to the municipality. So if Ms. McGoldrick, if you can come back with that, that would be appreciated. I don't think it stops where we're going with the motion today, but I think it would be a good sense for us to have as we dialogue with our counterparts with our concerns around this.
Okay, Ms. McGoldrick, I don't see a queue, and I'm just going to assume that you will come back, circle back. Very good. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get into comments. Councillor Singh, so who seconded your amendment? Did someone second it? Councillor Inez? Okay, good. So comments. First, Councillor Johnson, do you have more comments to make or no?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, very good. Councillor Marsh?
I didn't catch exactly what the motion is. Can you just repeat it? Because
The amendment?
okay, yes.
It's just that regional staff be open to working with our city staff to see if there could be a joint service agreement for garbage pickup. That could be, again, I'm going into more little detail, it's more of open for conversation more than anything else. I think staff would really find out the details, but their willingness to work with our resources within our operations to see if it's work that we can do based on, obviously, cost recovery. But if they can, I guess work with our staff to do it at a lesser cost than they're doing it right now. That's really what it is. So
to see if there's a possible mutually beneficial.
Exactly. The motion doesn't really specify any particular agreement. It just, as part of the advocacy, says that regional staff be willing to work with our staff to see if there's a reasonable model that can incorporate a joint service agreement.
Okay, very good. And again, back to comments. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I want to thank you, Councillor Michaud, for bringing this forward very timely. I received an email over the weekend about exactly what you're trying to address at a bus stop on Weber Street in Y Ward, and also shopping carts left full of garbage as well at the same location. So I can't wait to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Davey. And yeah, I want to commend Councillor Michaud. I think this was a very timely motion. I literally received about 3 emails with pictures, and they were just disasters of garbage, full of garbage. And I also want to reiterate some of what Ms. McGoldrick had mentioned too. I've noticed a significant amount of garbage that's been in our parks and everything else since the reduction of the waste removal, and I'm really concerned with the new bag that's going to be further garbage in the parks. And I've received many requests for us to have more receptacles. So in my opinion, any reduction in these waste receptacles is definitely not the route that we want to go.
Councillor Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. In our efforts to have a clean city initiatives for just better quality of life, the actions that the region has taken goes completely contrary. Like Councillor Ioannidis says, I have also received criticism from residents just seeing just more garbage thrown around in neighborhoods, especially close to bus stops. So I think this is a very timely motion. I commend Councillor Michaud. I enviously look at it and consider why didn't I think of it. So absolutely, this is something that we should be advocating. And I think there is an opportunity for our staff within our resources to work with the region to consider a viable option that at least affects some of the concerns that they may have, that's more financially minded, while at the same time doesn't necessarily download the cost to us either. And as others have kind of already noted, within our already agreements where we have to clean around, it's effective downloading already. And I think that's something that we need to find a better model towards. So strongly encourage and support this motion.
Yeah, and I'll finally echo my thank you, Councillor Michaud. It's timely. Oh, Mayor Benching, I'll get to you in just a second. So very quickly, I was on one of my sounding boards, and my life is Reddit, and there was a thread on there the other day complaining about why does the city, because the city always gets blamed, why does the city taking away all these garbage cans? And it saved me an email from Ms. McGoldrick, so that one's not going to come in because I saw your motion coming in. So I echo the comments from everyone here. And I don't know, being part of a municipality that's only increased services, I do get very frustrated when I see other municipalities decrease them. Mayor Benovich.
Thanks, Acting Mayor Davey, and I want to thank Councillor Michaud for bringing this forward. I'll be honest, when we got word of this at the region, it got past me at budget time that this was in fact something that was being considered. And what I would say is sometimes, things get decided, but it's also important to recognize and acknowledge when they don't work. And it's very quickly become clear that this does not work, and it's not consistent with our values as a community, both in terms of looking after the environment, in terms of ensuring a clean city. From a Kitchener perspective, a long time ago, our motto was clean as a kitchen. That was before, I think, all of our time, or most of our times, as staff or as council around the horseshoe. But it is something that we should strive for. And this, clearly is simply moving the problem from a, very practical emptying out a garbage can to no doubt us probably spending even more money because now the garbage is scattered all over the place to pick it up than what the cost would have been if it wasn't a bin. I can support Councillor Singh's motion to look at collaboration and partnerships, but I think it is important for Council to keep in mind that this is a service that runs beyond the City of Kitchener, so it would require collaboration and partnerships not just with us, but also with the City of Waterloo and the City of Cambridge, where Grand River Transit operates, as well as a certain amount of limited service into Elmira and St. Jacobs. But overall, I think this is a great motion and something that does need to be reversed sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll vote on Councillor Singh's amendment. Those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And the main motion is put forward by Councillor Michaud. Those in favor? And that carries unanimously as well. Very good. So what's next here? So on to questions and answers. Any questions and answers? Members of council? Not seeing any. Next we have bylaws. So I think, am I supposed to ask the clerk now for the late starter bylaws? Okay, please. There are.
Through the chair, there are additional bylaws: a zoning bylaw and official plan amendment for 27 Roy Street, a zoning bylaw amendment for 82 Wilson, 84 Wilson, and 210 4th Street, a zoning bylaw and official plan amendment for 368, 372, 374, and 382 Ottawa Street South, 99, 103, 107, 111, and 115 Pattenden Avenue, and a zoning bylaw and official plan amendment for 1668 King Street East.
Okay, very good. Can I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Galloway-Seelock, seconded by Councillor Schneider. Those in favor? And no one is opposed. And now, okay, so remind me here now, we don't have committee of the whole, so what is up next? Third reading? Okay, so can I get a mover for third reading of bylaws? That's really quick bylaws. Councillor Michaud, seconded by Councillor Schneider. Those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. And I guess I'm now looking for a mover for adjournment. Mover to adjourn, Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Galloway-Seelock. Thank you, everybody. Good work.
Great job, Mr. Acting Mayor.